Alright, welcome everybody to another mixing video. Today we're going to be looking at part 4 of mixing a song start to finish. And today we're going to be looking at top-down mixing, which in a way, in the previous video, we already kind of started working on that because we did mix bus processing, which ultimately is the very tip top, right? This is the very end. Everything passes through this mix bus. But what I'm getting at is now we're going to move on to the group tracks here. So all the percussion and drums, as well as bass, guitar, etc. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the drums. I'm going to try and keep everything as level matched as possible. Then when I'm done with that, I'll go into the bass and add on. Okay, so the only one that's really going to start in solo is drums. Then everything will build from there. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'll do the processing and then I will explain afterwards. So yes, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so let's check that out. Some really simple EQ moves here. High passing at 20 just to get rid of the ultra lows. A slight little bell curve here at 60, just like 1 dB. With a narrow Q, I'm cutting out some 300 to 350 basically, about 4.5 dB taken out there. That's just a really boxy area, and that's what I really like to take out of drums. Adding a shelf at 7.5, about a dB and a half. Then I'm adding FGN just to get some of that drive, because drums love saturation, and cutting back about a dB and a half on the trimmer just to sort of level match a little bit. Then I'm going here to the FG red, ratio of 4:1, slow attack and a fast release, so this lets the transients through, and you can really hear the transient on that snare. So yeah, I'm getting about a dB to 2 dB of compression here. Adding some drive once again because I love the sound of this saturation. High pass filter sidechain at 70 Hertz. So it is triggering. It is getting triggered by the kick a little bit, but not as hard. This just helped me even out the compression and get it exactly where I wanted it. And I don't know if you noticed, but when I took this chain in and out, to me the percussion just sort of falls apart a little bit. So moving on, I'll solo the bass track here, and we'll get started on some processing there. Okay, so let's check that out. So I started off with a very slight high pass filter here, very gentle curve here, minus 6 dB per octave, all the way up to 40 hertz, which is somewhat high for bass guitar to be high passed at. I usually prefer around 30, but I feel like there's a lot of buildup in my particular bass tracks that I use. The bass that I use is a cheap Squier bass, so it's kind of muddy down there. So to make room for the kick, I use this high pass filter, and I also think that helps feed this compressor a more even signal also. So yeah, LA2A, pretty typical on bass. I just really use this to glue the two bass tracks together because it is a DI as well as an amp. I actually tracked it with this plugin because if you know how the Apollo interfaces work, you know that you can track with plugins. But to me, doubling up on it doesn't really matter. So then I go to some API EQ, adding some 800, which kind of gives it some of that finger sound. It just helps it cut through a little bit. Then I'm also adding some low end here at 100, dialing that back about 3 dB because I'm adding about 4 dB of gain in these particular frequencies. But I'm also thinking about when I'm feeding into this R bass here, because R bass tends to add some gain, and I actually dialed that back about 2 dB as well. So yeah, this just adds some low-end harmonics, really rounds things out, fattens it up, and yeah, I just had to sort of gain stage that. Okay, moving on, acoustic guitars. Okay, so this is really a simple thing here. Just using some subtractive EQ. I'm using a high pass at 81, which leaves room obviously for the bass and kick. I'm cutting out a little bit around 420. Very gentle, just about a dB. And I'm cutting out some muddiness here, about 3 dB at 890. And then very gently compressing this, because acoustic guitars, they can get over compressed quick. So I'm really just getting about 2 dB of gain reduction, and I'm actually only using, I'm dialing back the mix knob here, because yeah, I don't think that you want to compress this too much. And that's it, really. I had the transformer in just so that way it adds some fatness a little bit. Using a medium slow attack and a fast release. Not as fast as possible, but pretty fast. And that's because I'm thinking about front back depth. I don't want this as forward as the drums, but I don't want it all the way back in the back either. Okay, so moving on, let's get some electric guitar action here. Okay, so let's talk about that. High passing all the way up to 100, because I really don't think that these guitars need very much body at all. Cutting out some muddiness around 300, as well as some ice pickiness around 3K. It was just, this was a Strat that I recorded these guitars on, and it kind of, that 3K area, 2 to 3K can be kind of nasty. Then I used one of my favorite guitar compressors, and that is the LA3A. For the most part, getting 2 to 3 dB, but you could see it hits around 5 sometimes, which that's okay for with me. Levels out that guitar solo a little bit, and this just really helps with that. To me, a clean Strat through the amp that I used was a Fender Deluxe Reverb. So that real sort of spanky sound is really complemented by LA3A. And then I tried my best to get it level matched. Probably not perfect, but yeah, it did its job. Okay, moving on. Let's go to the others. I don't think there's any of that in this little loop. Aha, there is. There is some. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten up the loop a little. Or actually, yeah, I'll shorten up the loop a little bit just to have some of this arpeggiated synth as well as the piano here. Okay. So it's going to start kind of in the middle of the loop, but that's okay. So let's take a listen. Okay, so there's sort of a lot going on there, and this is one of those things where in solo it doesn't sound great, but in the context of the mix, I think it works, because what I'm trying to do is clear out that center, and it actually turned down these elements quite a bit, so I had to turn them up to get them sort of at the level that they were at. So let's go through this real quick. High passing to get rid of some muddiness. Also getting rid of some muddiness here at 500. Getting rid of some of the key sound, some of the harshness around 1.5. Adding a little bit of thickness with the harmonic distortion of the revival. Then I'm using center to bring the center down 11 dB, bring it up on the sides. Low end is more in the center, high end is in the sides. In fact, I might bring this a little bit more towards the sides later on, listening to it on the monitors. But for now, it sounds okay on these headphones. But as far as this processing, I will probably tweak this a little bit more off camera, so to speak. Okay, so moving on from there, same trick as I used on the master bus. I used it here on the piano and arpeggiator, because I still want it in the center a little bit to add a little bit of depth, but I want it to be more on the sides just to help that stereo image and thicken things up. Fairchild emulation, also just using it for the mid side, basically compressing the center a little more, adding some input gain to get some of that tube distortion on the sides, and then using some Pultec here to kind of tame that brightness, but not make it dull. So that's why I'm boosting and attenuating here at 10K. And then also adding some of that 100 back in, but also attenuating to make sure that it doesn't get boomy or muddy. So finally, let's move on to the vocals. And like I said, once again, this others mix bus right here, or this others group, I should say, I probably will indeed make some changes to this off camera. So moving on to the vocals bus, let's get started. So actually, I think that sounds pretty good for not doing any processing. I keep messing that word up. Excuse me. Any processing on the individual channels. This is just all on the groups and the mix bus. Um, all that's on here is tape emulation and console emulation. So, um, really, in reality, very few amounts of plugins. Um, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start the loop here at the beginning, and I'm just gonna bypass everything that we've done and bring it back in. So I'll bring the chains in and out. All right, let's check it out.
मेरी प्यास है तू हर खुशी हर वक्त है इस दिल को बस तेरी कमी तू आस है मेरी प्यास है तू हर खुशी हर वक्त है इस दिल को बस तेरी कमी तेरी खुशी में है मेरी खुशी कर ले तू मुझ पे तुझ बिन चैन न पाऊं कहीं तू मुझसे क्यों है रूठी मैं तुझ बिन चैन न पाऊं कहीं राजा हूँ मैं तेरा तू ही रह जाना बस मेरी तू बंद मेरी कैप्चिनो मैं सस्ती वाली चाय तेरी तू बंद मेरी कैप्चिनो मैं सस्ती वाली चाय
So to me, everything is starting to feel a little bit more alive, a little bit cleaner. This actually helped the balance a little bit more, in my opinion. There's a few things that I'm gonna need to fix, like the piano verse here. I'm gonna need to reset the level here. So that's the thing, is you start out with your initial levels, and then once you get some EQ and compression, sometimes you have to adjust those levels a little bit. But I think everything's starting to image a little bit better now. I think that the vocals are sitting a little bit more forward. Let me just go over what I did there real quick. High passed at 100, cleaned up some muddiness, and got rid of some nasaliness around 3K. And then my favorite vocal compressor as of now, slow attack, fast release, making sure that the low end isn't triggering this, and adding some gain to get some of that tube saturation, and knocking off about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction here. And yeah, just those two things, just some subtractive EQ and some compression, makes it actually sound brighter because that muddiness is taken away, and helps it sit forward. That's why I use the slow attack and fast release, because that really helps it come to the front of the mix, which is actually what I also did here on the drums. So in one of the videos before, I was saying that this is primarily drums and vocal focused. So that's why those things I had them brought forward. And then I also said that the bass was very important. So this has a slow attack and a slowish release as well. So that kind of helps bring it forward. But I kind of have it sitting back behind the drums, I think. And then the acoustic guitar and electric guitar, I just kind of have that just to sweeten things in the mix a little bit, and help it image a little bit better. So, I know that this was a long video, but as you can see, a lot was accomplished in this. Whether or not you think it was a good or bad thing, that's up to you. In my opinion, these little tricks right here actually made this start to sound a little bit more professional. By no means is this done, but it's really starting to get started here. It's imaging, it's clean, and now it's really ready for some processing here at the track level, where I'm gonna start with the drums and percussion section and move on from there. The good thing about this track is I know how I tracked my electric guitars as well as the bass. So I actually like the way it's sounding already, and I might not really need to do very much on those tracks. So yeah, there's actually not a whole lot that needs to be done, but the percussion section I'll probably do quite a bit. I'll do some stuff to the guitars that were sent to me, as well as the piano tracks and the vocal for sure, which I'm just noticing now that I don't have the virtual tape machine or the virtual mix rack on it. So I'll go ahead and I'll add that there. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, so yeah, next video will probably just be drums, and then from there I'll make another video doing everything else, and then the final video will be vocals and effects. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, as I always say. If you really liked it, please subscribe. And once again, thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. I hope that these are helping you guys out. And stay tuned for the next part of this series. And I hope to see you there. All right. Have a good rest of your day, and take care. Thank you.